sound. And then I'll do that whole speaker thing. Yeah, speaker. Okay, cool. Okay, good. What day? Okay. Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Jordan. I'm a co-founder with Ontario Black Doula Society, and it's Black History Month, so we are just catching up with some of our favorite sisters in the space to kind of talk about what history is being made right here, right now, today. And so we're gonna jump into some conversation today with Elsie. But first, like I said, I'm Jordan, co-founder of Ontario Black Doulas.
I'm Gab, fellow co-founder, and super excited to be chatting with the legend in the space for
Mhm.
sure.
Legend's taking it a little too far, but like way too far. But okay.
Absolutely not.
I'll
Absolutely.
Absolutely
take it.
not. I
I'll
want to
take
like
it, but it's far. But I'll take it.
I want to say too, like it's definitely not too far. I remember when I first got into this work because I got in, like I jumped head first, like I want to be a black doula for black doulas. And I was telling my trainer, one of my trainer, but the Canada doula at the time, I was like, that's what I want to do. Cause you know, you have to have the interview.
Hmm.
Like, I'm here for black people. And they're like, we need to connect you with Elsie. So it's been like since I've entered the space, you've been a figure.
Oh,
So would you like to introduce yourself, Elsie?
yeah. Sorry. No, I'm always shocked when I hear stuff like that. I think because I live in like a cocoon on my own. So I always feel like nobody really knows me, but it's all good. My name is Elsie. I'm the founder and CEO of Mino Care. It used to be called Mommy Monitor. We rebranded last year, but I'm really happy and pleased to be here and share whatever it is I can with you guys. I don't have a lot of opportunity. I have opportunities. Let me not lie. I don't take a lot of opportunities to like speak to everyone just because I'm overwhelmed a lot of the time with the work that I'm doing. But I'm always happy when I have the opportunity to share whatever I can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe speak a little bit about that. I mean, like you've been at it, like pedal to the metal for years now. What would you say is something that you're super proud of or grateful for over the time that you've been at it?
I'm grateful to do what I love. I think that's first and foremost, right? I'm grateful to know that that I had like a hope or a dream to do something and I actually was able to turn it into something and it's turning into something constantly because it's
Mm-hmm.
constantly growing and changing. So I'm always grateful for that. Um, I started this after my master's degree, using my own research and the recommendations for my research, to kind of explore what we could do for people from the African, Caribbean, and Latin American community living in Canada. Like, what could we do for them around their? I started with like perinatal health, low prenatal health. Like, what could we do, right? What's being offered? What's culturally at that time? I was using terms like culturally sensitive or culturally competent. We've grown since then, obviously, but though that's what I was trying to understand, like how are we serving them better and what is our research looking like? And I was looking at the limited research that we had in Canada about this experience and comparing to what we were seeing in the US, the UK, and so on and so forth. Just trying to understand what was the scope of our experience in Canada and how can we better support not just Canadian people from the ACB community, but also so African Caribbean Black community, but also people in addition to that who are refugees, immigrants, etc. Like, what is the full scope of our experience? How does it change according to our intersectional experiences? And how do we support people better according to their personal needs when it comes to birth, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I started. Things have changed over time, obviously, not the mandate, but how the work is done and how we execute and what we provide. Started off just with like birth justice workshops and a conference, basically. Started moving into providing services very slowly, very,
Mm-hmm.
very slowly. Trying to learn what the community needed as we were doing services and adding services according to what feedback we were getting. And now we're in a space where we're like a virtual perinatal care center, basically, where we offer a variety of services and we try to customize them according to the needs of each person that comes in our space, primarily Black folks. And we work just to ensure that their needs are met when they receive care so that they have the best possible outcome so we can reduce disparities, right? And that's kind of like where we're at now. This is what I do every day now. And yeah, and I love it. And we still have our conference and stuff like that too. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember back when you folks were Mommy Monitor, I had taken, I think it was called like it was a maternal mentor.
Yes,
This
yes,
is
you were there.
way back in the
Or
day,
very early on. I remember you.
very early on days, and it's been incredible truly to watch how Mommy Monitor, now Mino Care, has shifted and evolved as a response to what the community needs, you know, and you touched on something important. There's this gap in research, in data here in Canada specifically, and that's one of the things that forward. And things have evolved so much, you know. I think uh, at least for me, I resonated when you were like, whoa, like calm down, like it's not that deep. But it really is that deep because there are very far and few of us taking the role of community organizing, and you are one of those. And so really that's why we invited you to be here. We do want to pick you up on the groundbreaking work that you have been doing. And so as you continue this work, what are things that you're looking forward to in the next year and the years with
Yeah.
Canada?
I believe in speaking what you want, and I believe if you speak it, then God will bring it to you, and it will grow. It will turn into whatever it is that you believe it to be. So manifestation, as people say, or whatever you want to call it. But for me, I look at companies in the U.S. like City Block Health. I look at Maven Clinic, and I see Mino Care becoming something like that, right? Something where we're inside corporations, where we're inside, like we're everywhere, right? So that everyone who needs our services gets access to them. I think beyond all of that, the goal from the day I started has been how do we put this in front of the government and help them to pay attention to perinatal care in general, right? When is
Mhm.
the last year, and I always ask people this genuinely, the last year that you've seen even a policy, like on the policy table, anything that has to do with like maternal perinatal health? Like we don't have those discussions anymore in Canada. We don't have a ministry for it. We don't have anything really focused or allocated to this other than having a space in the Ministry of Health where they allocate funds for maternal care services to different like CHCs or organizations that are working within it, or institutions that kind of hire the people and do the programming and whatnot, right? Which we see in public health and whatnot. But outside of that, we have nothing that's specifically focused on that. And it's crazy because we're supposed to be a country that's so progressive, but we're so behind when we see third world countries or so-called third world countries that actually have like ministries for maternal health and are very focused on it and really pay attention to what their population needs. So for me, it's creating something where we have the evidence and the data that we don't give away, but just having it to at least be able to share the story, share the data, share the numbers, and say we've served 2,000 Black persons, pregnant persons, or people who are experiencing postpartum care, or just Black persons, just depending on where they are in their journey. We've served these many people, and they have had these experiences in care, and they need this. This is what we need. This is what we're spending. This is what care looks like. This is what we need, right? And we try to build a case for them so that they're aware of what the real experience looks like. What is the real picture of the scope of this experience look like, and how can we, because their job is to serve us, right? Essentially, that's the job of government. So how can they better do that? And I think that's the space right now, and that's the fight that we're fighting, in the conversations that we are continuing to have. I would love to have a $1 billion valuation, like a City Block or a Maven Clinic. You know what I mean? Where you're doing something good, but it's so good that the world has to agree with it and join in and say we're all doing this. And what I love about it is it can still be a social enterprise. It can still be something with a social focus, but then and serve the people specifically, and then still do a lot of real good. And then hopefully then we can invest that and do more good. I think that's like ideal for me. That would be like my dream if we could get there someday.
Mhm. Well, like you said, you're speaking it and you're doing it, and so it shall come to pass. Um, I mean, you named a couple things there. W- What are maybe, I don't want to say the most, but what are, would you say maybe top two, top three things that you're seeing Black mothers, Black parents, Black birthing people need the most?
Right
Uh,
now,
yeah.
mental health support
Mm,
is at the top of it. That's our most used service. So our
mm,
most used services are doula care and mental health support. So those are the areas that honestly I'm always advocating on behalf of, and we're hiring more of, and we're trying to serve more of. We get like every day we get a bunch of intakes, and now we're doing wait lists because it's just more than what we can take on capacity wise. But even with that, the majority of the people are all using our mental health service. That's the thing that never stops. Even if
Right.
everything else pauses, our mental health services always keep going. They don't stop. So I think that's number one. The doula care is amazing too. We've seen cases all over the world. I use examples from everywhere. South Korea, the government subsidizes the fees for their doula care, or they call it ajima, but they subsidize those fees so that the parent pays like I think $50 or something like that for
Mm.
the care, and the government pays for the rest. In the state of New York, the government was also offering doula care for Black parents or people or families who need it. There's various other spaces that are providing doula care because they're realizing need for it. Research is backing it up now. I think for many years people weren't sure how doulas fit into this equation of birth, and because people are so focused on the clinical aspect of the experience. But I think that now when they put two and two together, and the research is showing us that doulas help to reduce the disparities that we're seeing, right? The fact that Black women are Black birthing persons are 3 to 4 times more likely to experience a complication that could lead to death. That reduces significantly if they have a doula with them. That, like, you know what I mean? We're seeing that, and evidence is showing that. So those are the two things for me that I focus on the most, that are the biggest issues and are the biggest need, and the things that I think the government needs to tap in on and take over, because they shouldn't be private services. That's just kind of like where I sit with that, from seeing how much there's a need. And I see the people crying, I hear the cries, I know, like, I see the real experiences behind closed doors, so I know the need is really there, like beyond what people really realize.
Hmm. I When you say mental health services, what do some of those services look like
So
specifically?
specifically counseling more
Yeah.
than anything else, right? I think there's a large scope of things that can be done in the mental health space, but
Mhm.
I think just as a starting spot, people just need access to therapy. They need access to a licensed specialist or expert that they can speak to, that looks like them, that has a similar cultural background, that maybe speaks a similar language, whatever that looks like, but somebody who understands them and who can has that expertise and can support them through their journey. And with us, like, because obviously it is expensive, right? So we can't really early on when we started our therapy, a lot of people were doing like 10 sessions a month, and it was crazy. And
Mm.
I was like, what is happening? And some things without me, obviously, there's a million things going on. Sometimes you miss the little things, right? So we had to, like, obviously cut back on that and make changes immediately. In that, I also realized how drastic the need was. Like, even talking to the therapist after, getting feedback. And a lot of them were like, these people, like, we really need to do more of this. And what I love about what we do is it kind of doesn't just end there. So now we have like a model where we try to figure out how long will somebody really need support and services before they can, like, so how long is it going to be, like 2 sessions a month or 3 sessions a month to one session? Like, what does that path look like? And
Right.
when you get to like the one session to the point where they're like, oh, I don't really need this as much, and the therapist agrees, what are we offering in between that time to support them to ensure that they can get to that space in the most holistic, healthy, and successful way? So it's a lot of that is identifying resources or other supports, because what's beautiful about therapy and just about the work that we do is that we're not just giving you doula care or just therapy or pelvic floor therapy or whatever. We're trying to figure out what else you need. So if the issue is housing, if the issue is obstetric violence, if the issue is like CAS, if whatever the issue may be, it's us trying to identify that and figure out how we can find those resources to support you, even if it's not directly through us, right? So you have the best ability to have a happy, functional life,
Mhm.
which is what everyone deserves. So yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I feel like what you're speaking to, Elsie, is the importance of that continuing, right? And that, like, these life-changing reproductive experiences aren't supposed to happen in silos. I'd love to hear you speak a little bit to um what concerns you as a leader in the space, especially as things grow and expand, and you're witnessing firsthand what the gaps are in our support system.
I think for me, the challenges sit in different spaces. So I think like amongst the organizations, the biggest issue is segregation and the inability to kind of share information and not working together. So there's a lot of repetition of the same things, which means the same resources are being shared to do the same thing. But if we could all, and I learned this from just, I've been watching this and seeing this. We see this in global health in the global South, but then we also, more recently, I'm seeing more people in the United States in the Black maternal health space doing this. Like if I'm doing a perinatal health service that offers doula care, then you can do pelvic floor therapy, or you can do like, oh, I'm the one who connects the services to institutions, and that like everybody finds, because there's so many gaps in so many areas where we need support and where work needs to happen. You could do the midwifery stuff, and you could do the physician, you could do the nurses, you could do, like, you know what I mean? And maybe you could do doulas in this area and I'll do it in that jurisdiction and that jurisdiction. Like, but we're all going to work together so that if I have somebody who needs something in Bloomingville and you work there, then I can send them to you. And then that's how we create a system that's more efficient. And that's how we really save people. The problem is we're all trying to take on everything. And when you do that, you fall apart eventually. That's not how things work. We have to work together for things to be successful. So I think like amongst ourselves in community and organizations, I think that's the biggest challenge, apart from just like lack of funding, which is also an issue, or the inability to generate funds, income on our own. I think that's a learning that we need in Canada. I think we've become too dependent on funding. And I think that we all have to kind of move on from that and learn how to generate income away from that. I think the other piece of this is if we think about it from the institutional or the governmental kind of landscape, or space sector, they don't listen and don't understand kind of like what's going on with us, and they're not willing to sit down with different people. They consistently sit down with the same people, so they're getting the same stories and the same information. But if they broaden their perspective and had more conversations with more people, we could have more effective outcomes. And that also streams into or goes into the way we do things in community. So it's kind of like a cycle with that. And just with the actual clients and people, the largest challenge is just like, honestly, I've seen a number of things. I think for healthcare professionals, it's the harm they're experiencing and birth workers from clients, which we're not talking a lot about, which is getting worse in the last 2 years specifically. We need to kind of address that and support them, because the birth workers and healthcare professionals are the ones who are doing the work, the ones we depend on. And then the other piece of this is the clients themselves just understanding what's available to them. That's something from the very start, like from the first day when I started as Mommy Monitor, I realized people just weren't even aware what their rights were, what they could be offered, what they could use, what's accessible to them. Like, you know what I mean? We don't talk about the amount of funding that's lost with programs that are delivered by public health that nobody goes to. So like even that kind of stuff we don't talk about, we don't address those things and how the government loses millions just with that alone. We don't talk about provinces like Nova Scotia and whatnot cutting all their prenatal care. Like we don't talk about all of these, like the ways in which people are missing things, and they're having to rely on the internet now, rely on TikTok, or rely on family and friends to kind of inform them. But what I'm trying to do, what our goal is to show people the benefit in having expert advice, and whether that's a birth worker or a healthcare professional, just having access, knowing that there's access to it, and knowing that how beneficial it could be and how it could really be the difference between life and death for a lot of people, which it has been, which we've seen in our own work time and time again.
Oof, that was heavy. There was a lot of things you touched on right there. I want to go back to the one that I feel like we have the most control over, which would be that element of collaboration and co-creation. Where does that start? How do we start that? What does that look like?
It has to start amongst ourselves. The mistake is larger organizations are always coming in and telling us to collaborate
Yep.
because they want to work with us for whatever reason, but it has to be us. We have to like really come together. And I feel like I've seen some efforts of that, but it just doesn't work for some reason. I'm not sure why. Even with myself, I'm quite busy, right? So I know I don't collaborate as much as I could. I try my best to at least work with everyone. That's my form of collaboration, like just trying to identify who's available and work with everyone,
Mm.
right? And make sure that we're generating income within the community by employing people within our community and giving them funds, right? There's some moments where there's generally no Black people there. And so I try to find the next best thing. And if I can't find anyone, I just look for an ally, at least who can serve the clients. But for the most part, I think we have to identify how we as individuals can collaborate. If my form of collaboration is funding people, then that's fine. If my form of collaboration is working with people and hiring people, that's fine. If my form of collaboration is literally just creating partnerships with people and streamlining services and saying all my clients will go to this person and that person and that person, that's fine as well, right? But I think on another level, everyone just kind of coming together and saying, like I said earlier on, this is what we all do, kind of like a needs assessment, right? Or some type of scope
Mm.
of work, and saying like, we all do this. So I do this, you do this, you do this, and I do that, and you do that. Now we all do these things. How do we function amongst ourselves? How do we work with each other? And I think the positive part of it is we're identifying who's doing what. So the data piece, we know who's doing what, right? Which works on an even better level, like when we get to institutions and all that stuff later on. Because now when we go to them, we say, these are all the people. There's 100 of us. And we're all doing this stuff and we're all serving together 10,000 or 100,000 people a
Right,
year.
right.
Like there's a need here, right? So that's the positive part of that. But the other positive piece is we also weed out the people who aren't really doing the work.
Mm.
So weed out the people who come with, it's funny, I watched this show and they call it business card girls, like people who just have a card but they're not actually doing anything. Like, so like we weed out the people who have the face of like, we're doing this, but they're not even doing anything, they're not actually doing anything. And then we work with the people who are really doing the work. And then that's how we move forward. And then if the people who aren't doing work, who want to do work later, they can come back once they're
Right,
like, we're ready to do something, right? Maybe if they see everyone else is serious, they'll be more serious too. But I think there's so many people to serve. And I feel like I say this all the time. Mino Care is not we're not the only ones who can do it. It's impossible, right? Even if we grow bigger and bigger and bigger, right? There's still like over 1 million Black folks in Canada, right? 1.6 million now, I think. So it's like, we can't do it all, right? We can do a good majority, but we can't do it all. And so we need you guys, we need other people to come together and join us and work with us and figure out how we can do this on a larger scale, because otherwise, like, this all falls apart.
Mm.
And it's not sustainable, right? We were talking with another leader in the community, Elsie, who is the founder of Ancestral Midwives, and she was saying, every time I'm in these spaces, I see the same 20 people, right? It's a small community of us that, like you spoke to, are actually doing something. And so that often makes me think of, okay, how do we come together and support one another? How do we come together and ensure that we're not duplicating the work, right? Like, if there's a small pot of us that have the capacity, that have the knowledge to do the community organizing, what does it look like for us to actually come together and uplift one another and support one another and make sure that those gaps are filled across the board? So I really appreciate what you've brought to the table, because it's got my brain moving for sure.
Yeah, and I think like we have to be honest as well. I think that's the other part, right? Integrity and accountability plays a large part in this. I think that all of us haven't been the best to all of us. And I think that that plays a large role in why some people just feel like, I don't want to go there and I don't want to do this with so and so and I don't want to work with so and so. I hear the rumblings and I'm not even in community like that, right? But I hear the rumblings, right? So for me, I'm always just kind of like in a space of like, is this necessary? And I hear it in all spaces, from the doctors and nurses to do like I hear it in all the different spaces. So for me, I'm always like, I don't even want to get involved. Like, I just want to do this stuff and just like do what I got to do and keep it moving. But like even that's wrong. Like, I think that the easiest way for us to just do this is to literally just do it. Like right now we're building a website specifically for this stuff. like just with all the Black perinatal tools, all the organizations, all the conferences that are happening, all the Canadian research, like everything in one space. Because I get emails every day and Lord knows I want to answer them all, but I can't. So like for me, I was like, what is the next best thing? And it's like a website, literally. A website where if you want to know all Black like perinatal maternal health research, we're gonna upload it. We're gonna keep it updated so you can see who's writing what papers and what they're doing and everything like that. If you want to know who are all the organizations, right there, it's gonna be right there. And if you're one, you can just send us your info and we'll add you. If any tools, people are creating tools all the time and guidelines and all these things constantly for reproductive and perinatal health. We're just gonna fill it all in one space, right? And we're building it now. We're almost done, and soon we're gonna put that out so that just people have it, like, and then we can add it as a resource and people can just keep adding to it, and it just makes it easier, right? Like to me, when I think of that, that's like one of how I always feel. I think about how I can help. I think about my skills and what are the ways where I can support with like in the with the ways that I know how to do things. And I know how to do stuff like this, right? For me, it's finding data is a large part of what we do. So it's like we stick to what we know, right? That's like the big thing. The other piece is everyone just getting together and just having a Zoom meeting like this and saying literally like, okay, what you're doing this and I'm doing that. Okay, cool. How can we collaborate? Okay, cool. And doing it honestly. And I think we do that. That's how we can be successful.
Love it. Yeah, okay. Cool.
Yeah, I'm just sitting with it because it's true. It's so true. And like honesty and the accountability is such a big piece of it. And like, that's not even just connected to reproductive care, that's that community in general, like us coming together in general and building community, period. Right? Like not only just as leaders in the field, just as Black humans, right? Like, what does it look like to build community with one another? So that's something I'm going to continue to ruminate on. And I do think that it is one of the big inspirations for the Ontario Black doulas coming for these conversations that we're having, like Black history is now. It's right now, it's in real time, and we are co-creating a new future together, and we have to do it together, right? Yeah.
And also, I say the whole year is Black History. I genuinely believe that. I say that all the time. So I think that's why I'm not so super like, and when it comes to Black History Month, because I'm like, no, it's the whole year. Like the whole year we're educating about Black perinatal health history. The whole year we're trying to figure out ways to kind of shove that stuff down everyone's throat to make sure everybody's aware and very informed. The whole like we just I think like, yeah, I'm very much tired of this idea that like we're a gimmick or that we're something that can only be celebrated for 28, 29 days, or whatever, however long it is or whatever. Like our health, our bodies, our minds, our spirits, like everything that we do, who we are as individuals, it just deserves a lot more respect, a lot more time, a lot more energy, a lot more focus, a lot more information. Like we need to be informed. We need to know who, like I was literally thinking about this a day ago. Like we got to get these people when they're young. Like I was thinking about reproductive health and I was like, yo, like people just don't know about like fibroids or PCOS or endometriosis or any of the things that plague our community and impact their fertility, impact their prenatal postpartum experience, impact their birth, like their postpartum health, the fourth phase, like a year later, 10 years later, cardiovascular health, like all these things are connected, right? So I've just been thinking about it a lot. And I'm just like, we got to get them when they're young. We got to get people when they're like 14, 15, 16, like, right? When menstruation hits, we got to be there. We got to be like informing them. We got to be getting people tested. We got to give them the support and tools that they need to feel healthy and to know that their bodies matter. Their bodies deserve love and respect, and people need to be informed and they need access to information and access to services. And that's what I'm like really thinking about recently more than anything else, in addition to like, how do we serve and connect in community? How do we better involve them in the model without it overwhelming the work that we do as well? Because in community, everybody has an opinion. And that's the other big lesson I learned over time. I worked with Toronto Housing years ago. And I worked in Scarborough somewhere, and I was running like a little community hub. And I remember we had like advisory meetings with the community. And I remember like there was always like a core group of like Caribbean women and like a few African women and like who all lived in the community would come. And like the African women would never say anything. I remember the Caribbean women were always very like opinionated, and they're like, we have to do this, we have to change this, like very much like on it, like, you know what I mean? And it was great. But then I also learned a really brilliant lesson out of this. And I learned that like just individual voices sometimes overpower what an entire group of people wants, but they don't speak for an entire group. So how do we draw out the voices, the other quieter voices, right, that are in the same space who also have needs that are quite different? We're like Black people are not a monolith. So how do we understand what everybody wants? So I've taken that into like what we do now. And so a lot of my focus in the model, our business model, is like, how do I understand what like every client really needs, right? And know that everybody's different, has different experiences and paths and needs. How do we figure that out? So like that's a big thing for me more than anything else, that I take a lot of time trying to figure out, how do we perfect that? How do we understand and serve people better?
Just before I kind of wrap up, just out of curiosity, what have some of those findings been? Is it like a survey-based model? Is it one-to-one conversations? Like, what does that look like, finding that
All
information?
of the above.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time in doing monitoring evaluation. So a lot of our clients, when they come into our system and they use our services, the healthcare professionals update us on each client. So that's
Mm.
one data that we have just to help us understand and update us in the sense like nothing extensive, because we want to be safe with their information. So it's more so like, the session went well, or this client's doing better, or client needs A, B, and C, so that we know if they need like something extra and we can support them, like stuff like that. But it just gives us a better idea of what they need. We've also done surveys with our clients and been like, hey, like we give incentives at all times. We always give them a gift card or something. And we're like, we just want to learn more about kind of like what you guys need right now or what's going on. Sometimes we send an email blast to everyone and we say, how are you guys feeling? We
Mm.
send one-on-one emails and ask them, follow up with their care, to ask them how things are going, what was their experience like with their care professional, do they need anything else, right? And then we also do one-on-one calls. So we do like all of the above just to like try to better learn. So which is another lesson for anyone who starts anything, just learn, find someone who takes care of your data, because you're gonna get a lot of it. There's a lot of it, and you have to learn how to manage it well, or everything will get lost in the sauce. But yeah, those are the big ways that we try to evaluate how people, our clients, feel and how to determine what their needs are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. I mean, Gab and I, we can talk about this stuff all day, forever and always, but we know we don't have that kind of time. And so as we think about Black history being right this instant, being every day that we wake up and serve our community and build in our community, I think self-preservation is law one, right? So
Yeah.
in honor of the living legend, Dr. Oni Noram, what is bringing you joy today and right now?
Miss Anye. Yeah, so
Hmm.
with what brings me joy, is that what it
What's
is?
what is bringing you joy in this work,
Okay.
in this space, in this year, let's say?
It's just, I think the biggest thing is like, even when I hate it, seeing that it changed lives always brings me right back. That's
Mm-hmm.
literally just what it is. Like being in a situation where we get like, I get a cards, Christmas cards from like parents. And like, you know what I mean? It's like the small things, like emails, like long emails with pictures of their kids. Just like, listen, like this was the best experience of my life. Like, or I almost died. Like you guys literally saved me. Like that kind of stuff. We're hearing from healthcare professionals who are like you're changing the lives of my clients. Like this is amazing. Like, please don't stop. Like, I'll do whatever I can to champion you and help you. Like that type of stuff, knowing that we have champions like in all spaces who are just always speaking so well of us, that stuff makes me feel like, okay, we're doing something right. Even if it's not perfect, even if it's not what I envision in my mind yet, right? Even if we don't get everything right in the moment, because you learn as you're growing, right? That kind of always brings me joy and always makes me feel like, okay, maybe I'm doing the right thing, right?
Definitely doing the right thing, Elsie.
No,
That
but sometimes, you know, you get tired and stressed. You're like, I'm tired of all these people. Like, I don't want to do this no more.
Mhm.
Everybody has a moment like that, right? But like those other moments help you to feel like, okay, like I'm not crazy. Especially when you see other companies have similar models and you see that they're successful. Like, okay, so we're doing something right. And you just have to learn because Canada is a very different context in various countries. So it's just learning how do we do this here successfully? And I think that's the journey we're on now.
Mhm. Ah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elsie, for your work and for your commitment to the work. We definitely need you here, as you well know. And so we thank you for sticking around. And, we look forward to continuing to do this work together in space with one another, and continuing to chart and write Black history. So
Thank you guys.
thank you so much. Um, okay, that's it. That's all. I'm gonna stop recording.
Okay.